Sometimes you just need to listen to the audio version of a mystery thriller book because it hits different. These books are great, and I listen to an audiobook every time I drive, and I drive a lot. So these are 3 great recommendations if you're busy or doing chores and you want to listen to something on an audio format. My first recommendation is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This story follows a young lady, her name is Lucy Chase, and a few years ago she woke up covered in her best friend's blood, wandering the streets alone, but she has no recollection of any memories from the night before. Fast forward to present day, she is now living in LA, but she is forced to move back to her hometown. When she moves back, there is a popular true crime podcast that is surfacing, and it's trying to investigate the incident that happened a few years ago. So this story follows her perspective at present day as well as the podcast components. And this story is really interesting because the podcast components are produced as if you're listening to an actual podcast. I think the story keeps you engaged throughout the entire book with twists and turns, and I was really engaged throughout the whole book, which doesn't really always happen with other books that I listen to. So I highly recommend you starting with this book if you're interested in exploring audio formats of book. Because of the way that it is produced, it is super engaging throughout the whole story. My second recommendation is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. So this story is about a neighborhood where multiple women go missing, including a mother and her daughter. However, after a few years, the daughter resurfaces and the truth starts to come out through multiple perspectives and timelines. This book was super engaging and really exciting to listen to because there's so many twists and turns throughout the entire book. I will say though, the first chapter of this book, from a certain perspective, was really hard to get through because it really sounded like the narrator was kind of like constipated throughout the entire narration of the story. But if you can get through the first chapter of this book, the rest is amazing, and that perspective doesn't come back later on. So the last recommendation that I have is called A Killer's Wife by Victor Methos. This story is a lot darker and scarier than the first two that I recommended, but it is very entertaining as well. This story follows a prosecutor, her name is Jessica Yardley, and her former husband is a convicted murderer and is now on death row. However, there is a new copycat that is resurfacing in their neighborhood, so now she has to confront her past, her ex-husband, as well as her own journey to find who the new copycat killer is. This story, it is a bit darker and it does feel more like a true crime because the husband does present to be like a sociopath or a psychopath, and kind of seeing his manipulation throughout the book is very interesting, but it is a bit deeper. However, the whole story, there are lots of plot twists and turns, so that's what keeps it really engaging. So if you are interested in this type of perspective or this story, definitely do check it out. So